So now, when we have all this, we've got all this information on the virtues. One thing important I propose you to do now with me, it's self-examination. I prepared some 40 questions. You don't have to answer those questions, I mean, publicly. These are questions you need to answer inside yourself. These questions are, in a way, a direction I give you for contemplation, for self-analysis. And these questions fundamentally are leadership questions, so they are focused on magnanimity and humility, although we have a few slides on courage and prudence. Because the first question is about humility. I told you that humility is about self-knowledge. So the first thing we need to think about when we think about the virtue of humility, do I know myself well? Do you try to know yourself? What is the temperament God gave me? This is an important act of humility, to try to understand who are we from a biological point of view. God has wanted us to be in a certain way, and we have to discover what is this way He has wanted us to be. Do I practice the virtues of character? Do I practice the virtues of character, which means do I strive in order to practice the things we've been speaking about those days? Yeah, maybe until now you've been really trying to practice, although you didn't know the words. I'm convinced that the majority of you've been trying to practice those virtues very often without even knowing that these were virtues, because we do this since we're very young. So I repeat here, you cannot give you points. You just have to think, do I really strive? Is it character for me something important I'm working upon? And this is an act of humility. It's an act of truth. Self-knowledge. Humility. Can I delve into my past and discern its meaning? Who am I? Humility, I repeat, is about self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is about your character, about your temperament, but it's also about the awareness of where you come from, who are your parents, your grandparents, the country you were born in, the ideals of this country you like, the things you dislike. This has a lot to do with humility because it has to do with self-knowledge. Who are you? We will speak about mission and vocation. Your mission in life is not a whim. It's not the thing you want to do. Your mission in life has a lot to do with who are you? Who are you? What's your story? Where do you come from? What are your talents? What are your gifts? This is a real beginning of a mission. Many people say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be a Rambo and go to Afghanistan. Well, and these are little boys, 2 years old, they have no muscles, no mind. It's a whim. It's not the story. It's not the story of that boy. The story of that boy may be very different. So it's important to know well our own story. It's important to write about our story. Because when you write your story, you make incredible discoverings. Discoverings not only about yourself, but about God and about those great people that brought you to the place where you are now. So gratitude comes out from it, and you discover with time, writing your story, who you really are and what it means for you to be faithful to what you are. And what you are, your own substance, it is in the end of the day what God has wanted you to become. So the effort to write a story, which is not a biography, it has to be something spiritual, it has to be a personal experience. You must not think it's an act of pride. It's absolutely necessary act of humility for any one of us to write your own story. And you must not necessarily show this story to other people. But it's an act of humility. It's an act of contemplation. It's an act of gratitude. And this has a lot of impact on self-understanding, on knowing thyself, and on understanding who you really are and what is probably the thing that God is expecting from you. You understand? Very often people say, well, God will speak to me. We come back to this idea, the spiritualist people, they always look outside themselves, God will speak to me, will send an angel. And very often when you look at your own personal story, you say, well, he has already spoken to me. He's already telling me what I have to do. Look at that. Look at the things I have received. Look at my history. Look at my parents, grandparents. Look at everything is surrounding me. This means what? This shows me the way. People that are like this are more sensible, are more sincere, are more Christians than those who always seek through supernatural things, a light. There is enough life in nature for us. Enough life in nature. And this light comes also from God. But we have to look for it. We have to investigate. We have to contemplate. We have to become deep. And then we see that through nature, God tells us a lot of things. You see, in Virtuous Leadership, I repeat, helps us a lot focusing on the human. It doesn't tell you, stop thinking about the supernatural. No. It tells you, okay, you pray, you pious, good, fantastic, do it. And do it more every day. But focus also on the human. Because in the human part, you've got a lot of interesting things you've never thought about. And God has already told you a lot of things there. He has already given you a lot of things there. But this requires an effort, which is more, I would say, more demanding than a supernatural effort of prayer, of asking God for light. It's the same difference that we have between a vocation and a mission. It's not very complicated to discover a vocation if you are a pious person. You speak to God, and in the deepest of your heart, it tells you what's your vocation. Your vocation as a way of being, not as something that they have to do. A vocation is not a call to do something. A vocation is the call to be someone. But a mission is a call to do something. But this call has a lot to do with human nature. Vocation is a very supernatural thing. A vocation is a gift of God to people. It's the project that God has about you since eternity. It's a very important thing. It's the whole frame of your life. It's that which gives unity to your life as a Christian. But it is not a specific thing that you have to do. A mission, it is a specific thing that you have to do. And for 99% of people on earth, this mission has to be discovered not in mental prayer, but in analysis of your own life, in nature. What is the thing that you have to do? You have to discover it by yourself. God wants you to use your human powers in order to discover your mission. You cannot discover your vocation through human powers. But your mission, yes. Well, you have certain people like Joan of Arc, they receive a supernatural mission. But we are not Joan of Arc. We have a mission that is natural and we have to discover it. And all of us, we have a mission. And this mission, we discover it through our human nature. Through nature. Through our own history. And I repeat, it's not a whim. It's not about what I want to do. It's about who am I? What's my personal substance? My substance is my history, my parents, my grandparents, my country, my culture, what I love and what I hate. This is my substance. And in this substance, you discover a very precise direction for your mission in life when you contemplate the world in which you live. And you see who you are, what's the problem. You put those two things together and you understand what will be your contribution to humanity. And this is your mission. You understand the difference between mission and vocation? It's very important. These are absolutely two different levels. The vocation is a supernatural frame for your life. It's a gift of God. It's the plan of God from eternity for you. And it's about being, not about doing something. A vocation, that's why you meet a lot of people with a vocation, because they are very supernatural and they understand perfectly what their vocation is. They pray, they're okay. But after you look at their lives, there is no mission there. Why? Because they don't have magnanimity. They are good people. They are good Christians. They have a sense of vocation. They have it. They're okay. There is no mission in their lives. They cannot figure out a mission out of what they are. And the missions are very different inside the same vocation. You have millions of different missions because people inside one vocation are very, very different. They have not received the same gifts. They don't have the same story. Don't have the same culture. You follow me? And it's much more complicated to discover a mission than to discover a vocation. Well, people that are coward will never discover their vocation because vocation is a call to be someone, and cowards don't like to do what others tell them to do. But a vocation, a mission demands a lot of prudence, a lot of investigation, a lot of contemplation, a lot of reflection on human things. So for people who are not used to deal with human things, who are used to deal only with the supernatural aspect of life, they don't understand what their mission could be. They don't get it. Take a piece of paper, a pen, and begin to write things you remember in your life that have been important in the people you've known, and draw conclusions. Draw conclusions, then you understand yourself. And then you see the problem in your country, you see the problem in your family, the problem in your organization, and you make a confrontation between who you are and what's happening around. And then you see more or less what's going to be, what could be your mission. That's it. And I repeat, it has to do with who you are, not with what you would like to do as a human being. It's a long process, Joe. It's a long process. Discovering a mission is not easy. And a mission is something that can be improved every year. You have to come back very frequently and contemplate every year during a retreat, for instance. During a retreat days, 2 or 3 or 5 days, whatever it is, take some time to just try in the presence of God to contemplate your past, to try to understand who you are, where you stand now, and come back to those things every year for a while, and you will see new light. So it can take a bit of time, especially if people have never thought about those things. It can take a little bit of time. And then the mission can become more and more precise with time. It can change a little bit because you get to know yourself better. And then you see better what is your contribution to humanity in a very precise way, what it could be. So it's not a dogma of faith, the mission. But God is very much interested in your mission, of course. Because He's interested in all what you do as a father. So He's not outside your way of thinking. And He probably helps you discover your mission in life. But it's not a vocation. So it may take time. It's not the result of a few minutes. You just begin to remember certain things. And after a few months, you come back to this event that you remember. And you discover other things in that event. And this has an incredible impact on you as a human being. It makes you better. Because you're trying to remember the right thing, the good things, those things that have had really an impact on you. Gratitude. It makes you better as a human being. There is a book of Dostoevsky called The Adolescent. It's not one of the most famous. But in the end of the book, Is it the adolescent in English? The teenager? How is it called, a teenager? Or the adolescent? Yeah, the adolescent. In the end of the book, the guy begins to write a lot. He writes a lot of things about his father, etc. And he says, by writing, he's transforming himself. He's becoming a true human being. He's becoming a moral being. By writing those things, it makes him a lot of good. Because he discovers the meaning in his life, the meaning in the life of others. It cures him, it heals him from many points of view. So I encourage you very much to make this exercise. Yeah, I discovered with time that my mission was to ignite hearts for greatness. It took a lot of time to come to this for me. But this is what I'm doing when I am giving classes on virtuous leadership. It took a lot of time. I did the same exercise as you're going to do. I wrote a book. You can read it. But I wrote it the same way as what I am expecting for you. That's why they gave it to you, by the way. I told them, give this book to the students because I want them to understand what they themselves have to do in order to discover what their mission could be. You see, igniting hearts for greatness, because in my life I have seen so many great people, and this is what has shocked me. And with time, years, in my early 40s, I began to understand that this is what my life, at the end of the day, is about. So every one of us has to do this exercise, and I think it's really an act of humility. Do I know what I am good at doing? Have I ever asked my friends to help me discover what I am good at? Well, this is an act of magnanimity. Well, those questions, you have it in my book, so it's no need to make pictures of the slides, because the questions, all those questions are in the end of the book, Create for Greatness. But here I just commented them with you. Do I know what I'm good at doing? Have I ever asked my friends to help me discover what I'm good at? It takes time to know. It takes time to know what are the things we do right, we do well. The feedback analysis, was used to say Peter Drucker, is so important in order to know ourselves better. We have to listen to people. What do they say about us? Are you a sportsman? Are you a businessman? Are you a musician? Are you a writer? Are you a speaker? Who are you? And we have to listen to what people say about us, what they can tell us, especially friends, people who like us, who love us. And we have to draw conclusions about our talents, our gifts, and we have to multiply them. Spend a lot of time multiplying it, or multiplying them. I know certain people are ashamed or timid to ask people about, what do you think this was right, this was good, this is me or this is not me. Of course we have to do those things, we have to ask those questions with naturalness. But we have to listen a lot what people say, to try to understand who we are. I remember I began to teach. Sorry, you asked me personal questions, so I answer. I began to teach when I was probably 38 years old. I was a lawyer, I was a barrister, I wasn't a teacher. But then one of my friends at the Helsinki University proposed me to give a class on the history of European integration. So I said, why not? Then I went to university because I like contact with students. I was very, very happy with that proposal. I went, began to teach my students. Well, and if I quit being a lawyer and I began to teach, it's because my students told me that I have to teach and I have to stop being a lawyer. So it's I took my personal experience also as something which is the experience of humanity. Which is the experience of humanity is really this one. It is the others tell you what you have to do. You have to listen to them. And this is something important, to listen to what people say about what you're doing, because there are things you do very bad, but there are other things you do very well. And you yourself, very often, you don't understand what are the things you do well and what are the things you do bad. You have to listen to feedback analysis, says Peter Drucker. Listen to people. Do I have confidence in my talents, which are gifts of God to me? The talents that God has given to you, you must trust those talents because they are gifts of God to you. They are not just things that you have. They've been given to you by God. Then you have to trust them in the same way you would trust grace. Because in the end of the day, they come from God. They have the same origin than the gifts of grace. They are natural gifts, natural talents, and you have to have confidence in them. You have to trust in man. You know, this beautiful sentence, trust in man. Not only trust in God, but trust in man, because in trusting in man, you trust in God. This is the real truth. It's not about the atheistic humanism where we trust in man, because man without God is a God. This is what they say. When I said trust in God, in man, I said trust in man because man has been created by God. So it's not a rejection of God. It's a consideration and a contemplation of God being present in our human nature. So we need to have confidence in those talents. This gives a lot in terms of magnanimity. Magnanimity is very much self-confidence. Magnanimous people are very self-confident. Their hope is enormous because they see their talents and then they think they can do the thing. And then they do it. Sometimes it doesn't work, but often it works. And they change the history of humanity. That's the thing. So it's because they have an incredible self-confidence. This self-confidence has nothing to do with self-esteem. Self-esteem is a psychological thing. It can come and go away. Well, you know, in the morning you have a lot of self-esteem, and when you go to bed in the evening you don't have so much self-esteem. That's what happens to people normally. You know? It's a normal thing. Well, self-confidence, it has to do with magnanimity. It is stable. It has nothing to do if you had a good night or a bad night, if you had falls during the day or whatever it is. Nothing to do with that. It is a habit, so it is always there. Self-esteem is not a habit. It's a psychological vision of self. It depends on many psychological things. And there are ways to raise the self-esteem of people in a few seconds or a few minutes. There are books about that. How do you raise the self-esteem of your people? Self-esteem and self-confidence is not the same thing. Don't use the word self-esteem. It's not a right word for you. Not a right word. You are children of God. This has nothing to do with self-esteem. This is awareness of your personal dignity. And this has to give you confidence. It's not something psychological that you're a child of God. It's something ontological. It has to do with your being. Self-esteem is something psychological. It can be manipulated. You can manipulate people with the concept of self-esteem, I promise you. There are many stuff about that, many books. Don't buy those things, it's nonsense, but many people buy them and I love it. I love it. They feel happy, it's feel-goodism. It's a part of the feel-goodism system. And you know what I'm speaking about. And millions of people, you know, small people, they love those things. They cannot have self-confidence because they are small. So they have to compensate with self-esteem. As important as it is to struggle against my defects, I should be more concerned to develop and augment my strength. Am I? Yes, I am not saying that we must not fight against our defects. We have to do this. And we will have to do this all our life. Because we will have defects of temperament that will never disappear. And the question is, if we are called to achieve great things on earth, then we better focus on our strength and multiply them. And too many people spend a lot of time fighting against their defects and very little time multiplying their strength. And then they don't really grow. Their lives are negative fights. It's not about becoming someone, it's about defending yourself against certain things. Defending yourself against pride, defending yourself against intemperance, defending yourself against envy, against greed. Their life is about a defense system. Do not commit sins. That's what their life is about. But this is not the Christian life. This is not a Christian life. It's a crazy thing. It's perfectionism, and perfectionism is little to do with perfection. Christian life is about be a child of God. Be perfect. Our Heavenly Father is perfect. I am not saying that we must commit sins. I am saying that we must, our life must have a positive dimension, a positive direction. And as Father was used to say, if we have sins, we go to confession. And this is the way to resolve the problem. But our life is to be moving forward. It has to be a movement towards great things. And of course, in this movement, the dust of the street, like Pope Francis liked to speak about, is there. Yes. So we need to strengthen those qualities that we have. That will help us achieve a mission in life. It's the multiplication of our talents. We need to work on them. Multiply them. We need to put more energy in developing our strength than in fighting against our defects. And very often, when you multiply your strength, you don't even see your defects because you have no time for them. You see, so you focus because your focus is on something else. So the focus on what you're doing, on your mission, makes you a person that already many of your problems are going to disappear. Because you're centered on something that is outside yourself. And when you're centered on yourself and your problems, then you cannot face those problems. But when you're centered on a mission, on something you have to do, 50% of your problems will disappear because your problems, it's about because you think too much about yourself. The majority of problems people have is because they think too much about themselves. As soon as you give them a task and they have to focus on that task, which is outside themselves, 50% of their problems are not problems anymore. So this is what happens when you have a strength, you have a talent, you want to do things and you move forward towards this, you multiply that, and many of your problems just disappear. You have no time for them. You know, you're busy. You're too busy to think about stupid things. That's it. You don't watch the cereal anymore because you have no time for the cereals. For instance, just a little example. Yes, don't have time to hold grudges. Why? Because there's so much thing to be done now. Then there is no place for grudges in your mind, right, in your heart. But if you don't have a mission, you don't have a talent to multiply, then what's the world inside you? The world inside you is going to be what people have told you, the way people have watched you, the way what is said about you. That's going to be your world inside. But if there is a real world outside you, this world inside disappears very quickly. So this is something important. We need to put more energy in developing our strength than in fighting against our defects, although we really need to fight against our defects also. Magnanimity. Have I discerned a mission in life? Well, I've already spoken about this, about the mission thing. I'm not going to speak about it again. We have to think, I repeat, a mission is about doing something. It's not like a vocation, which is about being in a certain way. So by the way, speaking about mission and vocation, that's why you meet a lot of people that are not religious at all. So they don't have at all the sense of vocation. Because a vocation means that you're a religious person that has you're in contact, you're in touch with God. But these people, many people very often have no sense of vocation, but because they are virtuous leaders, they have a sense of mission. I met quite a lot of people like this. They feel what they have to do because they know themselves well. They have magnanimity, they have natural humility, and they come to a conclusion. And they have a mission for their lives. Unfortunately, there is no vocation, which is the frame of your life. So it's a pity. It's a pity, but these guys are doing their best, and let's hope they will find God in their way. But they have a mission, and they see it, and they do it. And the opposite, on the opposite side, you see a lot of people that are religious because they pray. I'm not speaking about monks or priests, I'm speaking about natural religiosity. People that pray and of devotions to God, the Virgin Mary. They have a sense of vocation, but because there is no magnanimity, well, there is no sense of mission. So they are religious people, but the human aspect of life is not well developed. They are still in the supernatural, and they don't see the relationship with the supernatural and the natural. So these people, they have to learn a lot about virtuous leadership. It's very important for them, classes on virtuous leadership, because it gives them a lot of foundation for the natural aspect of life. Very often it's not because they are bad people, no, it's just because they never heard about it. It's just because they never heard about the necessity of developing virtues, specifically magnanimity. They've heard about being a good person, but they've not heard about what's human nature. Because they were educated very often in what we call spiritualist environments. The spiritualist environments, these are people that think that to be a Christian is to overcome your humanity. Yeah. When to be a Christian is not to overcome your humanity. To be a Christian is to be first a good person. Yeah, like C.S. Lewis was used to say, we have to be good pagans before being good Christians. Yeah, you have to be good pagans first. Yeah. So if we are not good pagans, we cannot be good Christians. So we have to be good at the natural level if we want to be good also at the supernatural level. But these two levels, they interact all the time with one another. So to be a good Christian doesn't mean to stop being a human being. It means to strive for becoming a perfect human being. So you follow me. These are two different things. And we have to think about how we make this compatible. The great thing in life is when people understand their vocation as Christians and at the same time understand their mission. Because then there is action and there is a frame that gives a meaning to everything. And this frame is the vocation. If you're not faithful to your vocation, it's a disaster. That's a drama for people because it's the plan of God for you since eternity. So it's no good not to be faithful to vocation. It's no good at all. Well, if you fail in your mission, well, it's a pity, but it's not dramatic. It's not dramatic, but it's really a pity because it's your contribution to humanity. You know, and in this mission, you grow, you discover a lot of things. You can even become a saint in achieving a mission on earth. So those two things are important, but we have to have in mind that the vocation is the frame without which there is not much meaning in what we're doing. Magnanimity. Well, this is a statue of Thomas More, by the way. People ask me, who is that guy? This is an American sculptor from South America who did beautiful sculptures of Thomas More about 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. This is Thomas. Do I strive not to get caught up in doing what's pleasant or urgent rather than what's important, the accomplishment of my mission? This is also a sign of magnanimity, which is this idea that the urgent things is not necessarily the important thing. Well, and Stephen Covey has a book about that, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He has a whole chapter on that thing. It's an important thing to remember that. We have a tendency to do a lot of things. We have a tendency when we go home in the evening to have a list of things we've done, the doing things, the do things. And we're happy when we've done this because we have a feeling that we are great people. But I repeat to you, in the end of the day, what's important is not that. The important is to have to be aware of what is important in your life and to stick to it. For instance, very often, if you're a CEO of an organization, what do we expect of you? We expect of you that you are going to do the things that others don't do, because you're paid for being the CEO, not for being a normal employee. So what do we expect from you? We expect from you that you're going to spend a lot of time doing things that others don't do. What are those things? Of course, long-term planning, but specifically speaking, spending a lot of time with people in the organization, especially the top management, to try to understand who is who, what are their talents, who are these people. This is what you have to do. The important thing is the time you spend with human beings, trying to understand them and discover what they can do, what their talents are. It's the education of your employees, moral education, professional education. It's the mission of your company. What's our mission? What are we doing now? Are we fulfilling a mission or are we doing something else? Are we just achieving financial results or are we fulfilling a mission? These are things that a CEO has to do all the time, and he's paid in the end of the day to do those things. And many people in the organization are paid for doing something else. Technical jobs, whatever it is, technical tasks. So the important thing is the leadership thing, are those things we're speaking about. Spending time with people, discovering the hidden talents of people, education, moral and professional education of the people involved in the process. All those things are important things. And the urgent things are not important. As Stephen Covey says very well, the urgent things, they attack you. And you defend yourself. While the important things, you attack. You get territory for you. You expand yourself. But the urgent thing, they stop your movement. It's a defense system for you. So people that are on the defense system all their lives, they cannot do important things at all. So the important thing is the time you spend thinking about the future, thinking about the strategy, thinking about your people, and specifically thinking about the mission of your organization. Are you fulfilling a mission? What's the contribution of your organization to the common good? Or are you just making money? You see, these are deep questions that are what we call the important questions. And the other questions, other people can deal with them. Do I try to inspire a sense of mission in the people around me? When you inspire in people a sense of mission, you help them becoming magnanimous. If among us here we have a few CEOs, just think of 1 second. Imagine the woman who comes to your office every morning at 5 o'clock and cleans the office of the CEO. That lady, she has to understand, if there is a real mission, if you are a leader and there is a real mission in your organization, you as a CEO or someone else in the company has to make that woman understand what she's doing. If she tells you, when you ask her, what are you doing? And if she tells you, I'm earning $500, you can be sure there is no leadership in that company. There is no leadership at all. If she tells you, well, I am a part of our mission and I know what's our mission about, and by cleaning the office of my boss, I am sharing in the mission of our organization, then there is leadership. She has a sense of personal dignity. She understands what her life is about, what her work is about, and she understands her contribution to humanity. This is what I mean by inspiring in people a sense of mission. All of them have to share in the mission of the organization. You have to find ways to help those people discover that mission. In many organizations, it's just a fake, the mission. The only important thing is, in fact, in reality, the financial results. But the mission is not serious. They don't believe in it. So what leaders do is that they spread out the sense of mission to anyone in the organization. From the top to the bottom. And the most simple employee that has a very low salary, that does a very simple job, has to be a part of the organization. And you cannot hire people that don't want to be a part of that mission. When you hire people, you have to be sure that they come because they like what you do. This is the unity of the organization, this is what leadership means. Do I seek the company of magnanimous people who, through their advice and by their example, help me to be magnanimous? I spoke about this yesterday, the importance of creating an environment that is magnanimous. And a big part of this environment are the people we observe, the people we spend time with. So we need to identify the great people we want to deal with, to spend time with. We want to learn from those people. The only thing I have to fear is not the evil that others do, but the good I fail to do. Do I realize this? Do I realize this? Magnanimous people are doers, because magnanimity is the virtue. It's a virtue of action. It brings virtue of contemplation and action. So a magnanimous person is very much afraid of the things that he doesn't do. When he goes to confession, for instance, he will speak first about the things he has not done. He's very afraid of the things he has not done, because magnanimity is a virtue of action. So the first things that he sees that are awful in his life, the big sins, are the sins of not doing. And he's not so frustrated by the sins he has committed in action. He fears and unhappy with the things he has not done. I tried to explain you the psychology of magnanimity. Magnanimity has a specific psychology, which is the psychology of people that are afraid of not doing, afraid of letting the occasion of action pass away, the opportunity pass away. There was an opportunity to do good. I didn't do it. I am evil. You see, the small people, they will see all the time the things they've done wrong. And when they go to confession, there is a list of things they've done wrong. The magnanimous people, there is a list of things they've not done at all. It's a different way of seeing things. So, Well, the lazy people also, there is a list of things they've not done. Well, the priest knows more than I what happens in the confessionals. But the important thing here I'm telling you is we have to fear the good that we don't do more than the evil that others do. This is psychology of a magnanimous mind. It is to think that in the end of the day, I am the enemy of humanity, not the others. Because I am to do certain things, I'm supposed to do certain things I'm not doing. And if things on earth go wrong, it's not because there are certain people here hidden behind that wall that are making a big conspiracy and want to destroy what I'm doing, or want to destroy our world. Very often, small people, they have a lot of enemies because they look for enemies, because they need enemies to explain the situation, to explain how bad things are, and to explain who is responsible for the fact that things are bad. The great people, they don't think like this. They just take it on themselves. And they think if things are going so bad, it's probably because I am not doing what I'm supposed to do. And you see, that means action. That's why these people, very often we think, where do these people come from? Those who change the history of humanity very often. It's because they are exactly like you and me. But they have another psychology, which is, well, if it is not me, why would it be that guy? If it is not me that is supposed to change things, why would it be you? They are very realistic people. We have a tendency, as small people, we have a tendency to live in a dream. The dream when the great guy will come and will save the United States of America. And we're praying God to send that guy. And that's what happens in many people. The great people, they don't think like this at all. They say, well, if it's not me, why would it be you? They are extremely realistic. They have an incredible vision of what history is about and how people move. And they say, well, these great people, they are like me. Those who change history are exactly like me. They are no better or worse. They just have something in their heads that tells you, now you do it. And if you don't do it, nobody will do it. And this is what happens in magnanimity. It is that you understand that you have a sense of personal dignity, a sense of talent, self-confidence. You know you're not better than the others, but you understand how things move on earth. And you understand that there is no reason that it wouldn't be you. That's so simple. That you're exactly like the others. You're a human being with weaknesses and strength. This is the psychology of magnanimity. The only thing I have to fear is not the evil that others do, but the good I fail to do. Do I realize this? Well, the great American Martin Luther King wrote a lot about that. The problem of humanity, he said, are not the good people, are not the bad people, he said, the evil ones. The problem of humanity are the good people who are not good enough. The good people that are not good enough, who are they? The small ones? The small good ones? Yeah, he was right. He understood this perfectly.